Okay, Aubrey O'Day. She's definitely a headliner and gets all the headlines, but has she seen her best in terms of reality TV? Will we see her in that platform again? Will we see her music again? The question is, what were the reality TV Aubrey O'Day appearances that were a highlight for you? Let's take a look at them. We'll break it all down and ask the question if will she ever get back to the Aubrey she once was? And also, what do we think of the Aubrey of today? Okay, so Aubrey O'Day, originally from the TV show Making the Band, is where, of course, Danity Kane and that whole MTV experience is where, she became the superstar that she was. Recently, I had recapped a old interview I had done with her. Over the years, I'd been around Aubrey on a couple different occasions, from red carpets to radio appearances during that whole Danity Kane run, because I've always worked in radio. And did get a chance to interview her and talk about some of those Making the Band experiences, but that was so long ago that it's really interesting to like hear the passion and even the frustrations of back then. And just as her career has went on, career longevity is not easy for anybody, let alone somebody who has as complicated as a relationship with the show business as Aubrey. We'll talk about where Aubrey is at now and the future and what all that stuff. We'll table that for now. But I just wanted to talk about Aubrey O'Day, wonderful reality TV experiences, and even asking the question, like, can she come back? Would she want to do a show? Or would the show she does, would it have to be under her production? So that way there's not the manipulative editing and stuff of that nature. Who knows? Maybe she'll end up on Real Housewives. But we'll talk about that in a moment. But I wanted to talk about the top reality TV moments for Aubrey. So let's just kind of go over a couple. She was on the show called Famously Single. That was on the E channel. Famously Single was interesting because essentially that is where what I loved about Famously Single, I think it only got 2 seasons. It really didn't get a fair shake, the show itself. There were a couple, obviously the whole goal is like you put all these namesake reality stars or notable people in a house, but the romance sparks. For her, it was Pauly D of that time from MTV's Jersey Shore. But that's like the big takeaway on Famously Single. But the other parts where there were a lot of, in terms of the cast members, they really got that time to have like the proper one-on-one with counselors, and people could really advise them on some of the issues that you can have in the world of dating, specifically people that like Aubrey or like a Pauly D that are in the public eye, and things are sometimes moving so fast, a mile a minute because of career, that you don't get to really like stop down and say, why are my relationships not working? And those relationships, obviously you mean that in the love elements, but sometimes you do have to break it down. You're like, oh gosh, these are some of the things I'm doing wrong in relationships with friends and family as well. There's these things that I built up that I need to kind of like let go in order to connect better. So Famously Single on the E channel actually was pretty good. I think I think that era of the E channel, it just always fell short to Bravo, which is so funny because there was a time where the E channel was everything, and the E channel for the longest time and still doesn't really compare to Bravo reality. And I always feel like if Famously Single, even under the NBC Universal umbrella, if that show would have got to be on Bravo and that type of exposure, I think the show would have done better. But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Aubrella, Aubrey O'Day, who's been in this business for a long time. Lover or hater, she does show up for herself. You know what I mean? She is tenacious. She makes mistakes. She shows up for herself again. She gets back up. And she's not without fault, but we'll talk about the things that we do like. So I thought a wonderful reality TV appearance for her was Famously Single. Another reality TV moment, and Aubrey does say that she gets a really great rate on these shows, because say what you want, when she does a reality show, I mean, she is she's the piss and vinegar that makes things happen sometimes, good and bad. I like to think good because I think she has a good heart from the one time that I did interview her. I think she has a good heart, but I also think like again, career longevity, keep trying and then, having little moments of failure. It's hard to be the excited Aubrey O'Day that, the MTV viewers fell in love with at the beginning. I'll talk about making the band in a second. Let's go to a couple other ones that are in the relationship space. Aubrey O'Day did Marriage Boot Camp not once but twice. She did it with a musician named Travis, and then she did it again with Pauly D. After they were together. And of course, I don't think they talk highly of each other at all now. Kind of sucks because I think that would have been a good relationship, but what do I know? Nonetheless, Marriage Boot Camp was a show where just that she had never really been married, but like the high profile relationship is what casted her, what cast her on the show. Marriage Boot Camp, also much like Famously Single, while it's all that one's a little more argumentative, Marriage Boot Camp, but there are a lot of lessons. There's a lot of access to counselors and really moments for the cast if they want to grow. So I thought that was good, and she must have been some type of amazing to be casted twice onto that series, Marriage Boot Camp. The one thing that was interesting about that, she did the show with Tammy Roman, and you know that I love Tammy Roman, and I would love to know from Aubrey where she stands with Tammy Roman now, because during the show, Aubrey and Tammy, of course, let's do the backstory on Tammy. Tammy, not just an actress and a singer and all these things, but before that was early on, she was the original when it comes to reality TV because Tammy Roman was on season 2 of The Real World, which was in Venice, the Los Angeles season. And then all these years have passed. And then she did Basketball Wives. And from that, kind of took her career into a really successful space, Tammy Roman. But this is before, kind of in the middle of all that, let's say. Anyways, Tammy is, to me, captivating and wonderful reality TV. Look her up. You're going to see all kinds of amazingness. She was like the meme and the, what is it, GIF? She was like that before it existed. Because again, Real World 1993 was season 2? Yeah. MTV's Real World, season 2, Tammy Roman, like she sort of brought a lot to that show. And in those times, you did the show, you made a little money, you got a little success, but it really wasn't a career maker as it is today. Anyways, that's just a little backstory on Tammy. So I really like Tammy, but also really like Aubrey. I've never met Tammy, but I've met Aubrey, and I'm watching the show, Marriage Boot Camp on, I think it was the We Entertainment. Yeah, the We channel. Yes, WE. And they got along all season. It was wonderful because they're two of my favorites. Good show. Kind of, I hate the word what is it called? Like guilty pleasure, because you like what you like. But anyways, good show. Aubrey got along very well with Tammy Roman. But then they filmed this interstitial moment. Interstitial is like when the network will have of like a marathon of a season or whatever, and then they have the cast members coming in and out of the commercials, kind of explaining like, oh, it's a Saturday marathon of blank 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 or whatever, or getting ready for the finale. Yeah, it's basic. But the point is, they did that filming, and evidently the filming was a long period of time. Mike the Situation was also there, so there was 3 of them. There was Mike, Tammy, and Aubrey. So Tammy was on one side of the couch, Aubrey was on the other side of the couch, and Mike was in the middle. Now, again, Tammy and Aubrey, when they filmed the show all those months before, were very close on the show. I like that. But when they did the interstitials and were filming for a long period of time, I guess Aubrey had gotten very like annoyed or tired. See, I need to know more of the story. Aubrey, tell us. She had got annoyed and she started like taking to her cell phone, and kind of wasting time. And one thing you want to do on a set is you don't want to waste anyone's time. And so Tammy got a little frustrated with that. And anyways, the tension keeps building and building and building and building to the point that Aubrey continues to be on the phone. And then Tammy continues to be frustrated at it. And then Tammy swats the cell phone out of Aubrey's hand. Didn't really escalate. I believe Aubrey like left the set or whatever the case. But it could have escalated, but it didn't. But it still was like, oh man, I've always wondered based on Marriage Boot Camp and that filming. Where do Aubrey and Tammy stand? Anyways, Aubrey 2 seasons on Marriage Boot Camp. Like I said, the first time she did it, I think it was the first. Yeah, that would have been the order. Travis is a musician, and then the second season was with Pauly D. So yeah, clearly she is top tier reality TV, even amongst all the stress and the drama that sometimes comes with Aubrey. I would imagine that most people really like her, but to think that she doesn't come with like the drama, which is really like a major component of reality TV, it's to be expected, right? So she did X on the Beach. X on the Beach is a show on MTV. Here's the problem with Aubrey O'Day and X on the Beach. While that reality show didn't work, it wasn't her fault. She had one of the lamest cast members to play off of that season, or that series rather, has ever had. She had nobody to work with. It was like, I don't know how much they pay. Here's the question: how much did they pay her? Because she was like, top tier reality star, and there was nobody to work with. Like, it was such a lame cast. And X on the Beach isn't really that great of a show. Even me, like, as a viewer currently, I don't love like the Love Islands, these like wacky dating shows, Love is Blind. I don't really like them. With X on the Beach, the reason I did like some of the seasons, specifically season 2, there was a season they were in the mountains, the snow. It's all casting for that show. Like, if X on the Beach has a good cast, you can enjoy the show. But if it doesn't have a good cast, it's a boring show. The show's premise is basically, the person, all these single people, and we'll see what happens. And then their exes come back into the house sporadically. And then it's like, oh, do I choose my ex or do I choose, who I'm in love with now? It's not the most interesting show, but if it's casted well, then the dynamics get interesting. And Aubrey, poor thing, Aubrey had a cast. Go look at the cast. And I don't want to knock anybody, because there might have been some kind of interesting cast members, some compelling people, but it was a really, really, really slow season. And so it was like, here Aubrey gets a chance to have like a really great MTV moment. See, I think Making the Band. She has a really good chance to have a wonderful MTV moment. And that's, of course, where viewers fell in love with her originally, as MTV. And she can't have it because she has a really boring cast. X on the Beach. Am I the only one who thinks she had a very difficult group to have a great season with? Nobody there really showed up. It was the Aubrey show. We'll get to that. She was also on British Celebrity Big Brother. So that's a big show. So I think that was good. I think that was the 18th season of that show. All about Aubrey on Oxygen. Now, the way reality TV goes now, it's so formulated, I guess. But I feel like this is what I would love to see with lots of people who do this platform. It was a show following, coming off of Making the Band and Danity Kane and What's Next. I think this is the kind of show I like. It disappoints me that a show like this, I mean, obviously, Oxygen Network, All About Aubrey, I enjoyed. I would say that every, big Aubrey O'Day fan would enjoy a show like All About Aubrey on the Oxygen Network. But I just think, maybe there wasn't enough drama. But in terms of shows, the reason I fell in love with Making the Band is because there was a process to it. It was you are auditioning, you're rehearsing, you're doing dance class, you're having the inner workings of the relationship with your other contestants. Like, there was a lot. And I felt like All About Aubrey kind of had a really great chance to leave off where that began, specifically for her. She at this point was now in the limelight. You know who she is. I think at that time she was like friends with Kim Kardashian when Kim Kardashian was sort of on her rise. So like, there was a lot you could have done. And the show did go All About Aubrey on Oxygen. But, I wish a show like that can have 15 seasons, 16 seasons, like The Real Housewives. I'm not knocking Real Housewives because I really like the show, but I'm saying with The Real Housewives, the only thing about it is there's not really anything that is happening. It's a fun show to watch. I think Aubrey should be cast on one of the Real Housewives franchises, but there's not really anything for the most part going on. And for All About Aubrey, there was that navigation of like career and, you know, what's next. And I think that's really fun to watch. Unfortunately, I don't think that brings the viewers, and or it was the Oxygen Network. You know, maybe that was the problem also. Okay, so she also did the Encore with Carlos King. So the Encore was the closest thing she's ever done to making the band. I believe this show filmed about 7 years prior in terms of it being a pilot or whatnot, or them developing it, and then it came back to series 7 years later. Aubrey was fantastic on it, and it's just like she did show up. She was a superstar at the beginning. I think a lot of people maybe had doubts with her, and she showed them just how assertive, how smart, how tenacious, and how wonderful she is in the career passion that she has. But much with these shows, either, and I would love to get Aubrey's opinion on this, either things are sort of already geared, or when you do these shows, you know, it's, you know, a good long time, and that it's kind of hard for somebody like Aubrey to rebrand or reinvent herself, because even on a show like the Encore, she was so wonderful at the beginning, so wonderful. Obviously, the spoiler, she left the show. And what I often wonder is, you know, within production, how much nudging had went on, how much pushing had went on to get that wonderful Aubrey moment, and what type of interesting scenarios that had happened to take Aubrey to that point. Because again, it's like, it makes me a little, we definitely have to have drama. That's what these shows are about, reality TV. I get it. Especially a show like the Encore, which was really cool. But I kind of feel like, whoa, 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 whoa. We got to have a moment for Aubrey where she was like really amongst all these other cast members who were all in the music industry as singers, you know, at different stages, and they're all coming together. And a lot of them were really superstars in the show. And Aubrey was too. But for whatever reason, again, it could just be she got frustrated. And, you know, after a long period of time, the pressure of being, you know, filming and in the house, it took her to a place and she left the show. Or is it kind of like you don't cast Aubrey on a show unless you get that epic Aubrella moment? As an Aubrey fan, and she is not without fault on some occasions, you know, anyone, you know, she's been doing what she's doing for a long period of time. You're not going to be perfect, but generally speaking, I'm like, does she ever get a chance to like be that person that's like, it was such a shock, not a shock to her fans, but a shock that like, dang, she's on this show called The Encore, which was produced by Carlos King. And she was really doing well at the beginning. She was getting along with everybody. Like, her instincts were really good. People were like, oh, Aubrey really knows what's up. She really knows her stuff. And I just wish that would have been the full story, but it was one of those moments where she left the show, and I don't think she talked highly about the show. So I would love to know more. What did Aubrey think of that show? And then I wanted to talk about, and we'll get to making the band at the very end. I wanted to talk about a show called The Aubrey O'Day Show, which didn't really make air. But what was interesting about that is she did that show with Melissa Molinaro, I believe is the name, who was one of the girls on Making the Band, who eventually went on to be on that one series, Hit the Floor. So she, you know, in her own right was a success. And I don't think they got along after a while either. So there is this common thing with Aubrey. Aubrey and Andrea, so close for Making the Band, then not. Aubrey and Dee Woods, which they may have become close again, but then, you know, there were some moments where they were not. And Melissa and Aubrey at one point were like the it girls coming off of Making the Band, and then they, of course, severed their relationship. I also don't know where Aubrey stands with Shannon, because they had done their music project, the duo. Aubrey's just had a lot of challenges when it comes to collaboration, which is probably why she chose to go in a new career. Anyways, we'll talk about that in a minute. What I feel about the Aubrey O'Day show, which you could catch moments of it, you know, on online, on YouTube or whatnot, I don't think that went to air. But I thought, just like what I said about All About Aubrey, I felt like there was something there. And so it always sucks. Like, again, this is not making an excuse for her, but it's also saying that she really is kind of, unfortunately, damned if she does, damned if she doesn't, because she can't really do a show and succeed. She has to do a show and give that epic Aubrey frustration, fed up moment. Um, and it's just, I just think there's more to her. But I also want to say that if you do something and career longevity is very difficult, frustrations come through. Not an excuse, but maybe more of a reason. Again, I did a wonderful interview with her as she was coming off of The Apprentice. We talked about her career more so than even The Apprentice. That was also another big reality show for her. And if you really give her the time, and if you really listen to her, by the way, if you really listen to her, she was on Sophia with an F's podcast, Sophia Franklin. She's been on Barstool's podcast. She's been on a lot. And of course, again, she interviewed with me, gosh, in 2010, I think it was. And if you really give her the chance, I think there's something really wonderful about her. So that is like the ultimate question as we get into Making the Band. Have we seen the last of Aubrey O'Day on a reality show? Is it better for her to not even go in that direction? Because quite frankly, it tends to end up not showing her in the best light anyway. Or does she take her career in her own hands, is what she seems to be doing at this moment. Now let's go to Making the Band. So I don't want to go into all of the Making the Band things, rather than just, because again, this episode is all about Aubrey O'Day's fantastic Making the Band moments. I'm sorry, Aubrey O'Day's fantastic reality TV moments. That's what this is about. And Making the Band, she did give so much. Even if it ended bad, she gave so much. So to me, it goes even from the early stages of the audition and the optimism that she had. I believe she stated something like, I just believe if you have confidence, it will always help you in whatever you're doing. That person seems so far ago. She's evolved in so many ways, but that is one of the things that you wanted to see that in yourself for your own, whatever you were working on. And so that was a little bit of a light. You're like, oh, I really like this Aubrey contestant. I hope she does well. And throughout the course of the journey on that show, and that's her original season, because this was Making the Band season 3. Season 1 was with the O-Town. It was on a different network. Then it moved to MTV, and it was a group called The Band. And then season 3 was what became Danity Kane. But even so, the first season, all these contestants, they did not make a group. They didn't make a group. They had to carry over just the 3 people who made it, which was Aubrey, Andrea, and Malika, and see if they would make the group. I mean, they obviously were in a better position to make the group, but they weren't guaranteed. It was like, oh, it didn't work, but these 3 are going to go to the next round with the whole new group of cast members. And of course, Malika went home quite early, unfortunately. And then Andrea and Aubrey, after which would have been close to 3 years of an experience filming 2 seasons, finally made Danity Kane. But, it's some of the moments where Aubrey, because again, I'm going to concentrate on moments that really say that Aubrey was good for reality TV and good for chasing her dreams. She worked her butt off with the dance, with the choreography. When certain, they would get called to compete, she would always show up. I remember there was one moment where she was like, listen, I don't care who is watching us while we're doing our performance or rehearsal or audition. I don't care what kind of energy they're giving. I'm going to give a superstar performance. And that really is something that's true. It's like, you're not always going to get the bells and whistles and the applause. And sometimes you're going to have to perform, audition, and rehearse in less than wonderful opportunities, and you still have to push through. And she did that. She also was very smart in the moment where she had to challenge. They had brought in a, so to speak, a den mother to be with the cast. And that particular individual kind of pushed the limits to ways that you probably shouldn't push the limits. And Aubrey had to stand for herself and say, no, we're going to do what is necessary, but you can't talk to us that way. And so I thought that was like a little bit of a, not star-making moment, but a moment no less. So yeah, those early Aubrey O'Day moments were really wonderful. The camera loved her, and the outside of Making the Band and Danity Kane buzz sort of took to her. And I think that made it a really hard experience for her with making the band, because it was always Danity Kane and it was always Aubrey, which is the same thing for any group for sure. I famously, the group No Doubt has that Don't Speak music video where they kind of showcase, okay, the band, you guys are back here. Let's put Gwen to the forefront. I think tons of groups have to deal with that regardless. But to do it on a reality show sort of could make you like the problem child, which Aubrey became. So those are the parts I didn't enjoy. But you know what? She did the project. She was in Danity Kane. They created wonderful music for those years. And she still is, doing her thing and working towards whatever her dreams are, which they could have changed. And a lot of times they can change. But we know that she was a dynamic reality TV contestant all those years. I hope there's a reality TV show that will fit her down the road. But if there isn't, maybe there's some kind of self-produced series she could create, even on YouTube, in terms of, still going at it and still, singing and dancing and following her dreams. Your dreams change, especially if you get to a certain age as well. But Aubrey O'Day will always be wonderful reality TV. What is your favorite reality TV moment from Aubrey? Do you like to see her continuing to push for the next thing? Or would you rather see her back on your TV screens on a reality show, specifically like Real Housewives, or should she do something that is more self-created? There's a lot of questions there, but no doubt, good and bad. For the good and bad, she is good at television, she's good at reality TV, and she is compelling. I feel like that's a thing that nobody could really argue. Abarella is definitely going to give you something, give you some footage that is captivating and compelling. So that's one thing that we know for sure. A couple other episodes in terms of Aubrey on the channel, so please go check those out, and we'll talk on the next one and let us know what you think. And that's just that on that. Aubrey O'Day, reality TV superstar.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.